Okay, believe it or not, this is like the third time I've tried it. I'm going to see if I can not touch things I shouldn't be touching. At any rate, we're doing January 2013. This video will accomplish problems 1 through 15. If you want 16 through 30, just click on hopefully the next video, but just look for January 2013, 16 through 30. Let's get started. This first problem has to do with correlation. This case, we have a line of best fit. We'll connect the dots in a scatter plot. What we do is we want to draw on the line of best fit. Sometimes this is called the trend line, or line of best fit. And since as the grades go up, the amount of hours spent working goes up, this has a positive correlation. If, however, these dots were coming down in a general state, you'd say negative correlation. And the time so the answer to this one is positive. But if you were looking for, if for some reason the dots are like all over the place, like this, you really couldn't tell, are they going up, are they coming down, then that would be no correlation. And don't forget, this has a positive correlation, and these dots are fairly close. This might have a correlation coefficient like maybe r equals 0.8 or 0.85. When we look at our calculators and we see a correlation coefficient of 1, that means they're an exact straight line up and down the line. These aren't an exact same line, but they are going up and it's got a good positive correlation. All right, next question. This question has to deal with miles per gallon. And right now we're getting 20 miles per gallon. We're going to travel 180 miles, and we're using the gas costs $3.98 a gallon. So the first thing I'm going to do is figure out how many gallons we're going to use. So we're going to take our total mileage that we're driving and divide it by how many miles we get per gallon. And that says, okay, we're going to use 9 gallons of gas. That we're going to have to take and multiply by $3.98. And if I pop over to my calculator, since I've already done that math for you, it's $3.98. Let me just clear this out since I've done this like 3 times. I'll clear the history. And what we'll do is we'll take the 9 gallons and we'll multiply that by $3.98. And we'll get $35.82. So this is $35.82. And closest one to that is 36. All right, we're moving on. Page 3. This problem, if you read it, because it's so abstract just means, you're not using numbers, you're using letters. I'd try to make it more abstract. So if you thought about it, we're making $10 per week, and we're going to go for 3 weeks. Wouldn't you just say, okay, I'm just going to multiply with 3, and I'm going to multiply it by 10, and I'd say, okay, I'm going to make $30 in those 3 weeks. That makes sense to you all. That stuff's easy. But what does the 3 represent? Well, that represents X. And 10 was the amount of money we're making per week, and that was D. So we're really looking for something X times D. If I come over here, well, here's D times X, and if you remember correctly, there's a little opportunity to learn something else. I can multiply in any order because that is the commutative, hopefully I spelled that right, property. In this case, it's the commutative property of multiplication, which just says I can multiply in any order I want and not change the value. Okay, next one is talking about the solution to the system of equations. Well, by now you should realize and remember that's where they hit each other. So I'm looking for that point of intersection. And that's very simply the -1, -2. -1, -2. And these, by the way, are just these are the x-intercepts. These are actually the roots. But it's, not really roots. They're actually the x-intercepts. And they would be roots if it was a parabola. But in this case, they would be the x-intercepts. And these are actually the y-intercepts. So they really have nothing to do with this problem. The answer is choice 3. All right, moving on. We're going to solve this one. We're going to do so mathematically because I think that's the way you should do it first. And then if you want to, you can check your answer using the calculator. We're going to add 4x because this is the smaller one. And that makes our x positive. So I get 5 plus 2x equals -7. We'll subtract 5, and I get 2x equals -12. Be careful. Both of those are negative, so it's negative 12. And I divide by 2, and I get x equals negative 6. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to take that answer, we're going to check it. So you all know that means we take negative 6, and we store that into x. And we're going to type that equation in. Now that equation was 5x, 5 minus 2x equals negative 4x minus 7. And hopefully this is true. It does, so we're good. We're all set. We got the right answer. All right, moving on to choice 4. Hopefully by now you recognize this as the difference of perfect squares, right? This is 10 squared. This is 1 squared. Don't fall into this trap. Everybody likes 50 because 50 plus 50 is 100, but this has nothing to do with the answers. And don't forget, with the difference of perfect squares, you're looking for a plus and a minus. So it has to be choice 1. Sometimes they'll ask a question like this: 9m squared minus 4p squared. Geez, I'm having a hard time coming up with letters. Well, all of these are perfect squares. That's a perfect square, m squared is a perfect square, 4 and p squared are perfect squares. So this again is the difference of perfect squares. This time it's 3m and 3m, 2p or not 2p. One's plus. So does it matter where the plus and minus go? Absolutely. It makes no difference. All right, for those of you wondering which angle we had to use, it doesn't give it to you, but it says, okay, what's cosine of A? So the arc must go here at A. First thing you have to do is, some old horse caught another horse taking oats away. We're going to use cosine. Labeling the diagram, don't forget that's pretty easy. This is the hypotenuse. This is the opposite because it's the opposite of the angle that we're looking for. And this is the adjacent. Well, I'm looking for those two because I need cosine, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. And that's clearly the 16 on top and the 20 on bottom. Choice 2. Anybody? 7 for 7. All right, bag contains 5 gumdrops, 5 green ones, and that's 6 red ones. And the problem says Kim's going to pull a green gum drop out of the bag and eat it. So no longer do we have a green gum drop. That goes to 4. It's not like you can bring it back. So we have a total now of 10 gum drops, 6 of which are red. So what's the probability she pulls out a red? 6 out of 10. All right, we're halfway there, almost. All right, you guys, this one's a joke. You guys should bang right through this problem. Remember, we got to pass the vertical line test. So, this one fails the vertical line test. This is a vertical line, so clearly that fails the vertical line test. This one, as close as it is, it still fails. This one, no matter where I draw a vertical line, it only hits the graph once. So number 3 is the answer. All right, here we go. This one is one of those rates of decay and growth questions. So if we were talking about growth, growth questions, the equation would be whatever the starting amount is, so the start amount, parentheses, and it's going to be 1 plus the rate to the number of years. Whereas decay is basically the same exact formula, whatever you're starting with, but you're going to multiply by 1 minus the percent to the number of years. So in this case, these two equations don't have 1 plus, they have 1 minus, because notice the value is less than 1, and if the value is less than 1, that's decay. And so we're looking for the one that does 1 plus, and 20%, when I put it in here, don't forget that goes in as 0.2. Right? And so this would be 1.2 that's in the parentheses, so that's choice 3. Thought I was going to beat the announcements. All right, here we go. What's going on here is you're multiplying twice times parentheses. We're not multiplying 2 times the x directly. We're multiplying 2 times this. Well, what is this? This is a sum. It's a summation. So we're looking for where it says twice a sum, because we're adding here. And twice a sum is choice 1. 12 talks about volumes of cubes. We could do this simply by doing the volume formulas. The volume of the large cube would be 10 times 10 times 10, which is 1,000. The volume of the small one would be 5 times 5 times 5, and that would be 125. And if I divide those, because we try to figure out how many of one goes into the other, if you divide those, you get 8. Alright, we're looking at this problem for least amount of bias. Now remember, bias means that the data was not collected correctly, which means it was just collected unfairly. So in this question, we're trying to look for the quality of food in the school lunch program. We're certainly not going to ask vegetarians because they have their own skew on things. This one looks pretty good. It says we're talking about 25 randomly chosen students from each grade. So notice we're picking different grade levels. We're not just picking freshmen or seniors. Ooh, by the way, you guys are almost not freshmen anymore. We just ask the people that dislike the food. That's kind of stupid. That doesn't make any sense. And if you ask at the booth, the only people that are going to come to the booth are the people that are going to want to complain. So the answer is choice 2. In this one right here, we can use the axis of symmetry. X equals negative b over 2a. Or x equals negative 8 over 2 times 1. Well, this is equal to negative 4. But I still don't have the vertex. I'm still looking to figure out, are we in quadrant 1? Are we in quadrant 2? Are we in quadrant 3? Or are we in quadrant 4? So in order to figure that out, we're going to have to plug this in. So we'll figure out y equals negative 4 squared plus 8 times negative 4 plus 10. Well, this is 16 minus 32 plus 10. If I add all this up, I get, that's negative 16 plus 10. So I get negative 6. So my point is negative 4, negative 6. And that would be somewhere down in this area or the third quadrant. Now, of course, I could graph this. X squared plus 8x plus 10. I go into the graphing mode. And I graph in x squared plus, oops, x squared plus 8x plus 10. And I do that, I would get, totally did not graph that correctly. Let me try that again. That would be not a parabola. So x squared, there we go, plus 8x plus 10. Okay, hopefully this one graphs correctly. There we go. And clearly down here is the vertex. Now don't forget to find that vertex. Sometimes we want to locate what that vertex is. I could just do menu, trace, graph trace, and use my left arrow. There's my 0, or root. At some point it's going to tell me this is a minimum. There is minimum, negative 4 and negative 6. So I did the right work, and it's in the fourth quadrant. All right, last problem. This one's pretty easy. We just have to find the area of this. Well, this side is 6. This is 12. And this is 12. So the area of this box is 144. So that means that's going to throw out these. If you remember, the area formula of a circle is radius squared times pi, or pi r squared, but we only have half of a circle, so we're going to divide that by 2. The radius is 6, so we do 1/2 times 6 squared pi. 6 squared is 36, half of 36 is 18, so this is 18 pi. So the area of the whole shape then would be the 144 plus the 18th part. And that ends part 1. Hopefully we didn't have too many interruptions and you didn't hear too much of the announcements. Go on and do the second part.